Hello everyone and welcome back to FIFA 22. Today we're looking at the career mode once again, and today we're looking at the best young central defensive midfielders with an 80 plus potential you can pick up if you're working from League 2. This is a very interesting list. Again, there are some players that are more expensive than others. There's some players that are absolute bargains. So I'll go through them all individually. Some might not suit you, some may suit you, but I've given you all the options just in case. Right, let's start things off with Zeno de Bast. Now, this one is 61 to 81. I've left him on this list because you can talk to him if you fill in that release clause. I wouldn't necessarily suggest it. He can play centre-back and central defensive midfield. I think there are much better options on this list, but he is available should you want him. But yeah, I would personally stay away from this one. Not the best potential, not the best current ability, and quite a high value. Next up, Rasul Undaye from FC Monteblad. He's available for between 1 million and 1.4, 61 current ability when the game starts. As you can see, he's already increased to a 62 in the first couple of weeks. And he has an 80 potential, so again, not the most valuable of play. Well, he's valuable for his worth, I think. Valuable for his worth? That's the wrong phrase, isn't it? I think he's overvalued by the game, to be honest. You are going to make a profit if you pick him up. You could use your player swaps to get him a lot cheaper, and that makes it a lot more useful for you. So it is definitely an option, but maybe not the best option on the list. But let's keep working through. Next up, we've got Bernat Turrientes from Real Sociedad. 2.1 to 3 million is quite expensive. 65 current ability, up to an 82 potential. So it is available. Again, it's quite expensive. Can play cam as well as centre mid and CDM. A player that if you could pick up, there is definitely a profit involved. If you are running with the financial takeover, definitely one worth thinking about because of that 82 potential and the current ability, which would make him a solid CDM or central midfielder in League 2. Next up, Alexis Baker, CDM, centre-back and centre-mid. 1.9 to 2.8 million, 65 current ability with an 85 potential. A pretty decent player. Again, you might be able to utilise your player swaps to get this guy cheaper. He is still quite expensive, to be honest. But yeah, with the player swaps, you might be able to get him for a bit of a better value. I think this is a bit of a difficult position because there's a lot of high-value people. I mean, the cheapest is probably going to be Undaye here, and he has an 80 potential. He's probably going to be your bargain option. But yeah, there's a lot of players on here that are quite expensive. But then again, you're paying for the value, and there is big profit in all these players, so don't worry about that. Next up, Sivert Manskverk. CDM from Molde in Norway. 2 million to 2.9 million. 64 current ability is where he starts. As you can see, he's already up to a 65. And an 82 potential. So again, another solid player. If you can utilise your player swaps, you might be able to get him for under 1 million. Can't promise that, but depends what team you are, really. Pretty solid player. Again, big potential of 82. There's a profit in that. But unless you can get a good player swap, he might be very, very expensive and difficult to pick up. So next up on the list, we have got Leonard Hartjes. This is another one you have to pay the release fee of 2.55 million. He has a 64 current ability. As you can see, already up to a 65 though, with an 80 potential. Do not suggest this one at all. He's very expensive, some with an 80 potential. There's much better people on this list. However, if you've got the financial takeover and you want him, go for him. You can afford him, why not? Next up, we've got Vassilis Sourlis. Can play centre mid, CDM and cam, Greek from Olympiacos. 2.1 million to 3 million. 82 potential from a 64 starting ability. As you can see, they've already gone up by 1 point in the first couple of weeks. So 65 rated in League 2 is very, very good. 2.1 to 3 million. Again, if you can utilise your player swaps, you should be able to get him for cheaper than that. And he would be a solid player for you who can play all the way across midfield. Next up, Ramon Tarik, 2.2 to 3.1 million, 66 current ability with an 80 potential. So we are getting higher up on the current ability now. A pretty solid player who will be very, very good for League 2. However, that value is still pretty high. Girona, could you play a swap with them? It's possible, but I think it's more unlikely because they are a higher rated team. But, I mean, you've got to try your best, haven't you? Might be a little bit out of the price range of most, but a pretty solid player nonetheless. Next up, Raphael Onyeama. 65 current ability, as you can see, up to a 66 already. 81 potential. 2.3 to 3.4 million from FC Midtjylland. Now, this is a team you could really do some player swaps with and get this player for potentially close to a million, if you're lucky, under a million. So it's definitely worth a try. Can play centre-back as well as centre-mid and central defensive midfield. Again, I think he's a pretty good option. But again, everyone on the CDM list is quite expensive. It's very, very tricky. But if you've got the financial takeover, then it is a very good option for you. Next up, Franco Serrano from Zaragoza. Can play CDM as well as centre mid and cam. 2.8 to 4.05 million. 67 starting ability up to an 82 potential. So really a solid player in League 2 to start with. Would probably dominate League 2 and dominate those midfields. But again, he's very expensive. The higher you get up, you are paying more, of course, for the current ability rather than the potential. So these players are going to be better, but more expensive. So it does depend mostly on your budget, how much you've got to spend. This could be a very good option. I think there are better options, though. If you are rocking with the financial takeover, there are much better options on this list a bit further down that you can afford. That'd be absolutely fantastic. So, I mean, this guy's available if you want him, but not one I would suggest. Next up, Jeremy Marquez, 67 up to an 81, 2.9 to 4.2 million. Can play centre mid as well as CDM. You might be able to get a bit of a player swap in there, but again, it's not going to be cheap either way. I mean, being in League 2, I mean, the maximum sort of players you're going to have are going to be about a million, just over a million. So with a player swap, you're still going to be looking probably over 2 million. So again, not one I would necessarily suggest. If you are running with the financial takeover, you could afford him, but again, I think there's better options on this list if you are running that financial takeover. Next up, someone who's been on this list for quite a few years now is Enzo Rodriguez. 2.7 to 3.8 million, 67 current ability with an 80 potential. Not really worth it again. I mean, he's worth it, don't be wrong. You'll make a profit on this player. If you purchase him, you will make a profit if he develops into close to his potential. But there's better options on this list. I mean, if you've just got a financial takeover and you're looking to buy loads of players you can make a hefty profit on, then go for it. If you're actually trying to run this on a budget, it's not worth it. Not worth it at all. Next up, Eric Sanchez, 67 current ability, 81 potential, 2.3 to 2.6 million. So a bit cheaper than some of the other options that are 67 rated. From Pachuca, you might be able to do a little bit of a player swap here, and you might be able to sneak this guy for close to a million, which would be an absolute steal. Again, that 81 potential is pretty good, but 67 current ability, he's going to dominate your midfield in League 2 pretty easy early on. Next up, we've got Martin Vittig, 3.1 to 4.5 million, 68 rated, 80 potential. He is available, but yeah, I'm not quite sure it's really worth it. He's expensive. If you've got the financial takeover, it's definitely worth a look because of his high rating. However, there are better players lower down on this list. So yeah, it's up to you if you want. He can play centre-back as well. So, like I say, if you've got that financial takeover, you've got a pretty strong player here who can cover 2 positions from the bench potentially, or be one of your starters. Next up, Matias Viviani. Again, another player who's been on this list for quite a few years now. 68 current ability, 81 potential. 3.2 million to 4.6. Expensive. Very expensive. For a player who's only got an 81 potential as well. Again, he is available. Not one I would suggest. I think there's better options lower on this list if you've got the money, and there's better options higher on this list if you're looking for a bargain. Next up, Santiago Nevada. 69 current ability up to an 82 potential. So this is one of the better ones. 3.2 to 3.75. If you are running with a financial takeover, this is one I would suggest. He's got one of the higher potentials and one of the higher current abilities as well. And it's not a terrible price. You will make a profit on this guy, and 69 rated in League 2 is going to be incredibly, incredibly strong. You've got really a League 1 player here in League 2 for a reasonable fee. And yeah, I think it'd be fantastic to get hold of this guy. Next up, we've got Ramon Enriquez, 3.9 to 5.7 million, 69 current ability, up to an 81 potential. So still pretty strong, not quite as good as Nevada, I think we just looked at beforehand, but if you've got the financial takeover, still a player you could pick up. But I don't believe he's the best option in this position, but he is available should you want it. Next up, Hanno Moracchio from Bristol City, 3.4 million to 4.8. 68 current ability when the game begins. As you can see, he's already gone up to a 69, and he has an 81 potential. That weekly wage though of 8.8 thousand is going to be difficult for a League 2 team. However, I don't think you're going to be looking at this player unless you've got the financial takeover. And if you have the financial takeover, I don't think you're going to be caring about 8,800 wages at all. So this is definitely an option, but I don't think it's the best option in my opinion. And the final player on the list is Marco Bolat. Now, if you've got financial takeover, this is the guy. 69 current ability when the game begins. As you can see, very close to a 70 as he's hit it already in the first couple of weeks of this playthrough. 84 potential, so the highest potential on the list. 4.6 to 7.1 billion is expensive. But not only are you getting a player with an 84 potential, you're also getting a player who has the leadership trait, which is very rare in younger players. So you will have yourself a pretty strong captain in the squad as well. So I definitely think that Marco Bolat is worth it if you have the money. 4.6 to 7.1 is going to be very expensive. I don't think you're able to afford this guy unless you put all your eggs in one basket, or unless you've got the financial takeover. I can't see you affording this one. But in my opinion, if you've got the financial takeover, I will personally go for Bolat and potentially Nevada. So 84 and 82 potentials. If you're looking to work more on a budget, you're going to have to go lower on the list. I probably would say Ndaye would be a good option. 80 potential for, if you use the player swaps well, possibly close to a free transfer. And potentially Becker as well. Maybe Manskverk will be available. It all depends on who you've got to swap and who the clubs are willing to take as well. But those would be my suggestions. Anyway, I hope this has been useful for you. Of course, if it has, hit that like button, subscribe, all the other good stuff. And I will see you again very soon for our next video. Good night, God bless, Auf Wiedersehen, Tati Bies.